Sometimes, in fact, quite frequently, don't let yourself flow in the direction of what you've actually become. And that is what negative emotion is. That's why negative emotion exists. Life caused you to become more, and you're not going. Not right now. Because you're still beating the drum of why you ask for it. I really, really need it, and it's wrong that I don't have it, and those other ones over there have got it, and I don't think it's fair, and when am I going to get my share, and I really want it now. And so, as you are observing life, there are plenty of things that are happening today in your life that are not exactly as you want them to be. But if you could understand that in all of that living of life, you've been asking for improvement, even if you are only a one-celled organism, you've been asking for improvement. You're far more than that. You're genius, leading-edge creators. As you are asking for more, that asking has already actualized vibrationally. And if it had not, then negative emotion would not be possible. In other words, if you had not expanded beyond what you are allowing, you would never feel negative emotion. Or if you have expanded and you are allowing the expansion, you will feel positive emotion. But if you've expanded and you're not allowing the expansion, then you feel negative emotion. So, a lot of times the negative emotion you feel feels like it's someone else's doing. They're doing that to me. Esther made a reservation at one of the places that they like to park their bus in the Boston vicinity. Makes them months in advance and specifically requests specific places to be because they have a really big bus. It's long and it's tall and it wants 50 amps. They tried it once on 30 amps and it freaked out. In the night, all of the breakers went boom, 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 boom. They thought they were being assaulted by machine gun fire. And then 14 things never worked again. And while they have all been repaired, now they are back in the same place. And the woman says, we only have a 30 amp site for you. And Esther said, I want to hurt you. Well, it's a knee-jerk reaction. When someone hurts you, don't you want to hurt them back? And doesn't it feel like it's somebody else's fault? And Esther said, seriously, I would have never, ever, ever agreed to that because we've had experiences in this park with 30 amps. And the woman said, well, we record every phone call. And Esther said, that's good for me because I know that I requested with great specifics a 50 amp site. And so they dug up the recording. It was really interesting because in 14 different ways, Esther specifically acknowledged how important it was that they have 50 amps. But in one small, unheard by Esther sentence, the woman had said, sometimes we cannot guarantee because someone may get there before you do and take the power from your pole. Only she didn't say it in that much specific. She just said, well, I've got you on a 50 amp site and blah, 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 blah. And when Esther listened back to it, she could see how the woman was confirming her rightness with the same recording that Esther was confirming her rightness. How can we both know that we're right? Now what we're getting at is, so something that should not have happened, happened. Or should it have not happened? Or should it have happened? In other words, as Esther listened back to the recording, she realized how many times she mentioned how important 50 amps were from her place of clearly knowing that she didn't want 30 amps. In other words, it's tricky, isn't it? In other words, the way it turned out and what Esther now knows about law of attraction, which she's been arguing with all day, but She knows that she is not the one exception in all of the universe, although she thinks that if anyone should be, it should be her. But Esther acknowledged, because of the way it turned out, because the way things manifest, that's your proof, isn't it? The way things manifest is your proof of what's going on in your vibration. Oh, that's painful to hear. What's happening is proof. What's happening is an indication of my vibration. Abraham, give me a break. Didn't you hear the recording? We said we heard the universal recording. We heard the same recording that Law of Attraction heard. We heard your concern about a 30 amp site, which was far, far, far more vivid than your appreciation of a 50 amp site. Your concern about what you did not want was far more active in your vibration than your vibration of what you do want. Well, that right there explains to all of you the reason that it's nobody else's fault, anything that happens to you. And while we acknowledge it sure feels better to blame somebody else than it does to accept your own stupidity. Oh, well, we got just a little carried away there. Than it does to accept your own guilt. In every case, whatever is coming to you is a vibrational indicator of what you've got going on vibrationally. And so if we were standing in your physical shoes and something happened in our experience and we did not like it, we would bring ourselves into an awareness of what we prefer, and we would practice the preference so often and so vividly that there could never again be confusion on the part of the universal manager who arranges all campsites for all campers. Talk about a really effective concierge in the sky. This is the thing that we really, 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 really want you to hear. You cannot train yourself into the vortex from anywhere outside the vortex. In other words, if we were to give you processes all day to try to help you to get into the vortex, it would be less effective than if life just takes you in. Jerry and Esther were driving across from Texas the last couple of days. Coming across New Mexico, there is this most beautiful place. It is called the Texas Canyon. It's in New Mexico. And it's not a canyon. But just the same, it is the most beautiful, 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 beautiful place. And as they drove and saw and breathed and felt, they could not remain outside the vortex. The condition of their moment took them in as they beheld the beauty and the well-being of their planet. Right in the vortex. Now, we don't want you running around looking for things that drag you in. There are plenty of them. But when you find yourself in there, milk it. Practice the vibration of it. Talk about how it feels. Remind yourself this is who you are. Remind yourself that this is the way you're supposed to feel. Remind yourself of the beauty of your planet. Remind yourself of the stability of your planet. Pick up a deck of well-being cards or beautiful pictures of something. In other words, that's the time to stay in the vortex. Practice the inside the vortex vibration. That will serve you far better than anything from outside the vortex you try to do to get in. And there are so many things that life shows you in every day that take you into the vortex. So when you find yourself in there, or when you even think you're in there and aren't sure, milk it. Milk it. Every time you have a moment and you are aware that you just felt a little relief and you're just feeling a little extra lift or high, a little better feeling, stop in that moment and acknowledge, what is it about this that feels so good? Jerry and Esther will sit in a restaurant that feels particularly good and they will play the game. Why do we like being here right now so much? What is it about this place that feels so good? Is it the lighting? Is it the food? Is it the fragrance in the air? Was it our server? Is it being with each other? No, it can't be that. We're always with each other. Must be something else. What is it? What is it? What is it that feels so good about this moment? What is it? And as they reach for it and identify more and more, what they do, they practice the vibration of being in the vortex longer. And this is the thing that we want you to understand. The more you practice it, the easier it is to be there. Don't you know people who are so optimistic that when you try to give them bad news, it just bounces off of them? Children are that way. A little girl in a restaurant, Jerry and Esther were sitting next to them, and the little girl was so taken by Esther. She could hear Esther's voice, so she was standing up in her booth, looking over her booth into the booth where Jerry and Esther were, and all she wanted to do was to see Esther. And Esther began winking at her and doing silly things with her silverware. She was eating with her spoon upside down and putting her napkin over her head. In other words, Esther was not helping the cause at all. Esther was attracting this little girl. And then Esther heard her father scolding her. And her father said, "Turn around and sit down now." And the little girl said, "No." And her father said, "Turn around and sit down now." And the little girl said, and Esther is thinking, "Please turn around and sit down. Please turn around and sit down." But her father grabbed her by the ankles and dragged her across the booth. And then it was no longer a pretty sight over there. Esther felt a little bad about having temporarily dragged her into the vortex when her father clearly likes her better outside of the vortex, behaving herself. When you find yourself in the vortex, milk it with everything that you've got until you have such a vibration going on from inside the vortex that no one and nothing that is reverberating out there with a different frequency has any access to you. And what you will begin to discover is those old troublesome thoughts that used to make their way into your consciousness frequently, they're gone. Old grudges lift off of you. You stop rendezvousing with ornery people. You stop rendezvousing with people in traffic that are inconsiderate. In other words, when you train yourself into a vibration of well-being, when you become solution-directed rather than problem-directed, when you train yourself inside the vortex, everything in your world will shift because you are the point of attraction. So we'll leave it here. We just want you to realize that the larger part of you exists. And the larger part of you, we have not said this before, but we want you to hear it now. If we were standing in your physical shoes, the soul energy, source energy, larger part of us would be our point of attraction. In other words, we would do anything and everything that we could do to deactivate any vibration that would hold us apart from our prosperity, from our well-being, from our clarity, from who we really are, from our love, from our efficiency, from our effectiveness, from our love of life, from our zest for living. So there isn't anything that we know that is important that you don't right now know. Our friend set us up for the perfect closing when he said, "What more can you give me? What more can you give me so that I can make this work for me?" And we say, "You have it all." You have it all. So what you want to do is just start applying it, which means get out there and have some step one moments and feel the discord in those step one moments. But next time you're having a step one moment where the problem is flailing, where what you want is missing, and where the negative emotion is flying high, next time you are in that moment, you'll be able to do something that you've never done before. You'll be able to say, "Oh, you bugger of a problem." As you come into focus, a solution beyond my wildest dreams is formulating equally. And therefore, I love you. And have you ever heard a better way of making peace with what is than to adore its life-giving, eternal giving functions? It's like embracing all that you are. It's like finally knowing why you're here. It's like appreciating the contrasts that surround you. It's like discovering your true expansion. It's like finally defining the universe in its rightness rather than in its wrongness. It's like giving up all struggle and finally being who you are. We have enjoyed this interaction more than words can describe.